Welcome back to the TheSlamDuncan YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys why I personally think that Arturas Karnisovas, now coming in as the new head executive for the Chicago Bulls, is really going to change this franchise around and basically kind of get to where the Denver Nuggets are right now. But that's probably going to be, a few years down the line. But I definitely want to be getting into obviously who Karnisovas is going to hire as head coach. As I personally think that Boylen's going to be fired, but I also want to talk about specifically things that Karnisovas is probably going to be doing to the Chicago Bulls roster, and what changes you can probably think are going to be coming, and basically explain why Karnisovas is going to be completely changing this franchise around. But before we get into it though, make sure you leave a like on this video. Also, if you're new to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But first thing I want to talk about is the coaching situation, which obviously all Bulls fans and many other people that follow the NBA know that Jim Boylen is probably one of the worst head coaches ever. And now there are reports coming out saying that Jim Boylen thinks that he's going to be back, but he still is going to meet with Karnisovas probably next week about his job security. But I'm going to say right now that Jim Boylen is officially gone. And the reason why I say that is because when Karnisovas was the assistant general manager for the Denver Nuggets had Brian Shaw as their head coach. And looking back at the 2014-15 season for the Denver Nuggets, they finished 30-52, which is kind of roughly around where the Bulls could potentially finish this season, but probably with less wins. But granted, they're also in the East. But eventually, the Nuggets got rid of Brian Shaw, and they brought in Mike Malone. And that basically tells me, though, that the way the Denver Nuggets run things is that they are not going to deal with any sort of crap that's happening, anything that does not meet their standards. So Brian Shaw, as a coach, did not meet their standards, and they got rid of him. And I think with Karnisovas, he probably knows enough already and is smart enough to see that Jim Boylen is not cut out to develop this rebuilding squad. And I think, personally, that Jim Boylen is going to be gone very, very quickly. Now, here's the thing, though. Who is going to be replacing Jim Boylen? And I'm really looking at people like Kenny Atkinson right now. Kenny Atkinson did a fantastic job with the Brooklyn Nets by getting them out of probably one of being the worst teams in the league to then becoming a playoff team with D'Angelo Russell. And now the Brooklyn Nets are currently looking very, very good in free agency due to Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. But the main thing, though, is that the culture was set in place before hitting home runs in the free agency period. So I think Kenny Atkinson is going to be definitely a great person for this Bulls squad, and I think Karnisovas will definitely be looking at Kenny Atkinson as a guy to come in and get this rebuilding Bulls team to the next level. However, I will say I think Karnisovas is going to have to look at multiple options, because the thing with Kenny Atkinson is, and it's basically been shown, is that he's currently not, he doesn't have a job right now because players on the Brooklyn Nets did not really want him there coaching the Nets team when they are serious contenders. So Mike Malone is a different case, because Mike Malone basically took the Denver Nuggets team from the bottom, and now the Denver Nuggets team is currently a contender and probably going to be contenders for many, many years. And Mike Malone just recently got an extension. So I don't know if Karnisovas is going to want to potentially bring Kenny Atkinson in and take this rebuilding team to then to a playoff team, but then potentially bring in a new head coach and to take over Kenny Atkinson when this team is officially starting to get to the contending type level. So there's a lot to think about, but I think personally that Kenny Atkinson is a really good head coach, and if Karnisovas trusts him, I think Karnisovas would bring him on to not only get this team out of rebuilding stage, but up into contending mode, and probably keep Kenny Atkinson if this team gets to be a contending type team. So that already itself is a humongous difference between the Garpax era to now what Karnisovas is going to be bringing, because Karnisovas is not going to deal with any sort of very bad seasons, like how Garpax would just be like, oh, we missed the playoffs even though it was our goal. That's okay, we're running back again. None of that should be happening, because if you look at the Denver Nuggets with Karnisovas as either assistant GM or GM, the Denver Nuggets have just consistently gotten better. And in the past 5 seasons, the Denver Nuggets have increased their win totals every single season. And with this season currently, if the break didn't happen, they would have eclipsed their record from last season. So the Denver Nuggets just continue to get better under Karnisovas. So I think personally that he is going to come in and be in charge of this Bulls team, making sure that this Bulls team is going to continue to get better every single year. So coaching-wise, that's going to be a big part of it, because he needs a coach to make sure that that coach builds up this team properly and helps them turn from a young team to a winning type team and getting better every single season. So that's just a humongous difference with between Garpax era and now Karnisovas era. So another big part of this I want to talk about, though, is looking at the roster constructions that between Chicago Bulls right now and obviously the current Denver Nuggets roster construction. So obviously with the Denver Nuggets, they currently have one star, like solidified star, and that's with Nikola Jokic, who Karnisovas was big on drafting in the second round. But main thing that I look when I see with this roster is that there are a lot of guys that have similar play styles, but it all fits under Mike Malone's system. And if you look at currently what the Denver Nuggets are doing under Mike Malone's system, is that they currently have a top 10 offense in the league, and Mike Malone's always been a great offensive coach. But the biggest surprising thing is that they have also a top 15 defense in the league. And that's without a major rim protector, because Nikola Jokic is not the greatest defender, as we all know. But they still find a way to actually play very solid defense. And that is another big difference between Garpax era and Karnisovas era, is that they're not going to bring in a coach to fix just one thing. Karnisovas wants a coach to address both sides, which the Bulls are terrible basically on both sides of the ball. So instead of bringing on Tibbs, who's only strictly defense, or Fred Hoiberg, who's strictly offense, now Karnisovas is going to bring in a coach that is going to make sure that both sides of the ball are going to be addressed and hopefully keep improving every single year. Now, with the roster though, we already talked about Jokic being the main star, but I'm also looking at Jamal Murray as probably being the second guy on the Denver Nuggets roster. After that though, it kind of falls off, but it's still very, very solid players. For example, Jeremy Grant, trading for Jeremy Grant from the Thunder, that was a perfect trade, because now he fits in perfectly alongside Jokic, because he plays similar to what Paul Millsap plays when Paul Millsap wasn't as old. And due to Paul Millsap being older and also having more injuries, he was able to bring in a guy that brings something similar to what Paul Millsap used to bring and not have to give up too much, and him and Jokic are still very effective together. So that itself just shows he knows who to put alongside the stars, which is Jokic. He got a guy like Jeremy Grant, and with Jamal Murray, he has Gary Harris and Will Barton alongside him on the perimeter, and those two guys just really benefit each other so well, because if you look at Murray with Harris is a strictly a very, very good shooter and also a pretty solid defender, which Murray needs because Murray's not the greatest defender. And Will Barton can be that secondary ball handler for Murray when Murray is going to be more of an off-ball type player for the possession. So that is very huge on the difference between Garpax and Karnisovas, is that Garpax did not necessarily understand who is the best counterparts to the stars that they currently have. For example, Garpax went after Pau Gasol when we already had Joakim Noah, and the NBA was shifting towards more analytics, and they couldn't play 2 7-footers together anymore. So that is not going to happen anymore. Instead, Karnisovas is going to know who to bring in alongside the stars to help the stars get better. And then also just looking at the drafting from this team, this Denver Nuggets team was drafted to be where it is right now. They didn't do many things in free agency. Their biggest free agency move was Paul Millsap, and now he's currently 35. So if you look at Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, Nikola Jokic, Monte Morris with the 51st overall pick, those are just guys that the Nuggets have drafted to become very, very good players, and some obviously to all-stars. And that's something I can 100% trust with Karnisovas coming in, is that he's going to it's probably maybe not free agency, especially the first couple of seasons, but he's going to draft the right type of people to help benefit this team and make them better every single year. And also just the bench guys, kind of want to hit that very quickly. Mason Plumlee, who got traded for Jusuf Nurkic, I think that was actually like really, really solid because the Nuggets knew that Jokic was going to be their guy, and Nurkic wasn't technically, the center of the future anymore. So they traded Nurkic for the perfect backup, and Plumlee can also play alongside Jokic. So again, it fits perfectly alongside the star. And also a guy like Torrey Craig, and before they traded Malik Beasley, those two guys, whenever they come in and take over for Harris or Barton, they know their roles very, very well, and there's not a significant drop-off from when the starters come out and the Nuggets go to the bench. So it's really, really solid team just from top to bottom that Karnisovas has done with the Denver Nuggets. Now, looking at the Chicago Bulls and where they're currently at, there are obviously some big major flaws. First thing I look at is just that there are no shot creators on this team. The only two shot creators basically on this team that I consider is obviously Zach LaVine, and I'll put Kobe White in there because he's very good in the pick and roll. Other than that, though, there aren't really many shot creators. Another issue I see is the fact that there aren't many very good passers on this team. I believe Kobe White's going to get better at passing as he continues, and he's probably going to be playing more of a point guard type role. But the best passer on this team, in my opinion, is between Denzel Valentine, who has many flaws in his game, and then Tomas Satoransky. And if you look at the Denver Nuggets, I mean, Nikola Jokic is one of the best passing big men in the league. Not to mention that, Jamal Murray benefits so well off of that, and he can be a very good passer because of Jokic's passing. And Paul Millsap has always been known as one of the better passing big men in the league. Will Barton can handle the ball and facilitate well, but also score. So I think what Karnisovas is going to be thinking about for this Bulls team is not having so many just one-dimensional guys of I score first, then I pass. He's going to get a lot of guys that would be more willing to pass the ball. But I do think, though, that under Jim Boylen, we're missing a big part of some people's games, so they're actually a lot better passers than what we think right now. For example, I want to get to this big part of what Karnisovas I think is going to do, is that I have two guys that I really see under Karnisovas that are going to end up being very, very good, and they're just going to flourish if they stay on the roster. And one of them is Zach LaVine, because under Mike Malone, obviously there's always a really good guard that handles the ball, that can score and also pass and create shots. That's Zach LaVine basically in a nutshell. For the other big thing is that they have a big man that can do so much on offense. And I think what people don't really understand is that Wendell Carter Jr. is very, very skilled as a big man. And I know he's not that big. He's only 6'9". He's not a 7-footer. But Wendell Carter Jr. can do so much, and we just have not seen it. And that's because Jim Boylen did not allow for post-ups. He didn't allow for Wendell to be setting the screens on pick and rolls very, very often. But the main thing that Wendell was not allowed to do under Jim Boylen's offense was he was not allowed to go into the high post and be a facilitator. And if you think about what Wendell did at Duke, there were times with when Bagley was the guy down low, and Wendell was actually the big man playing on the perimeter. But the main thing that was happening is that Wendell was the high post guy and Bagley was the low post guy. And Wendell was really, really good at getting Bagley the ball in the post from the high post. Or Wendell was also very, very good at playing the high post and passing it to cutters like Trey Jones, for example. And I think Wendell has the ability to kind of be that point center that Nikola Jokic is currently, maybe obviously not to the same degree because Jokic is obviously a much better passer, but Wendell has that ability, and I think Karnisovas is going to realize that and make sure that whoever he brings as a new coach is going to allow Wendell to get the ball, not necessarily to score all the time, but to be a facilitator in the offense, as that opens up so many more opportunities for the Bulls offense. So you don't always have Kobe White or Zach LaVine pounding the rock at the top of the key. You have Wendell Carter Jr. getting involved in the offense, kind of playing the Joakim Noah type role when Noah was still on the team. So I definitely see LaVine and Wendell Carter Jr. being kind of the two guys for this Bulls team right at the beginning that can really flourish right from the start, just from Karnisovas coming into office and basically taking over the team. Obviously, I see Coby White kind of similar to what Jamal Murray is, but I think Coby White's a much better pick and roll player. But obviously, he isn't as great of a shooter yet, at least off ball. So Coby White can be similar to what Jamal Murray is, and I don't see that big of an issue with Coby White starting alongside Zach LaVine. So I see those two as really the backcourt of the future. Now, main thing is, what a lot of people probably be talking about is with Lauri Markkanen. Now, again, I'm going to keep referencing what the Denver Nuggets have built with the roster. If you look at the types of power forwards that are on this roster, right now it's Jeremy Grant on the Denver Nuggets roster, but before Jeremy Grant, it was Paul Millsap. Now, for Nikola Jokic to flourish, right, he needs a guy that is going to be, one, a great defender alongside him, 2, have the ability to post up, 3, have the ability to shoot, but 4, also have the ability to switch. Now, here's the thing with Markkanen. Defensively, Markkanen is non-existent. Markkanen is a very bad defender, I think we all know that. So, I think this could work, though, if you really think about it, because Wendell is a very good defender, and if Wendell's going to be one of the focal points, then, it will be okay defensively because Wendell is a very good defender and can do more things, obviously, than Jokic, but he can really anchor a defense. The problem, what I see, though, is like the one-on-one matchups, and can these two play together consistently? So, I talked about with Mason Plumlee and Nikola Jokic playing together, and that's worked out perfectly fine. Hopefully that can work out with Wendell and Lauri Markkanen as well, but it may not be like with those two together all the time, because remember, Mason Plumlee comes off the bench and only plays spot minutes with Jokic and him together. And then this leads to my next point. The Bulls really need to be very careful with Lauri Markkanen, and he's already come out and said that he is very upset with the franchise and doesn't really want to play for the franchise if no major changes are going to be made. Now, we got Karnisovas in office now, so that's a major change, but the main thing is just he doesn't want to play under Boylen, and I expect Boylen to be gone. But the new head coach that comes in needs to make sure that they get Markkanen involved in the offense and not just simply a shooter. But that also contradicts what Karnisovas has done with this Denver Nuggets team, is that the power forward player isn't necessarily crazy involved in the offense. It's a lot of perimeter play, but the power forward guy is sometimes down low and sets a lot of screens and is usually a spot-up shooter, which is not great for Markkanen's game. And the other thing with Markkanen is that he actually has leverage in this situation. Markkanen can so this upcoming season, it's going to be Markkanen's last year of his rookie contract. However, he can sign the qualifying offer the next season and then become an unrestricted free agent the season after that, and he can leave and go anywhere he wants to. So he technically has leverage in this situation. Now, I don't know what Karnisovas has in mind, but he has to make sure he keeps Markkanen on this team, or he has to get rid of him and get good value for him back. But I personally do not know what he has in mind for Markkanen, and I really hope it's going to be a huge part of this team. I think Markkanen could be a second offensive option, but the way that I've seen Karnisovas come in and look at rosters and how he's built rosters, a guy like Markkanen isn't technically a guy that he really uses a lot. So it's something to keep in mind. And the other thing that I will say about Markkanen is that we have not seen that killer instinct in him at all. And I've said it earlier that with Karnisovas, he is not going to be dealing with people that underachieve. Brian Shaw was just gone. All these other guys that didn't play good defense, gone. So if Markkanen, under a new head coach, does not play very well, and he's not getting better like how he should be, but Karnisovas believes that he's done basically everything he can to get Markkanen to play the best, then I could potentially see the Bulls moving Markkanen for something better to fit better alongside Wendell and the rest of the players. Last thing I want to get to is that I think the Bulls are still missing another piece for them to become a legit contenders. And so with this roster, if you develop these guys correctly, I think it's a pretty solid playoff team, probably like the 5th seed at best. But I'm looking at that small forward position, and Otto Porter's all right, but he's not he's just not enough in my opinion. I think Zach LaVine can actually be the first offensive option on a contending team. Not the best player, but the number one offensive option. So that means that the Bulls need to probably address get a better player, or to be the best player at least at the forward position. Because I look at the guard positions, I think both of those spots are locked up. I think Wendell's got the center spot locked up. The forward positions are like the two places where I don't think it's a guarantee that Markkanen and Porter stay. So I think what Karnisovas is going to be looking at is hopefully getting someone either in free agency or draft, as he's done very well in the past, a guy to be the main guy on his Bulls team at the forward position in the upcoming drafts. But that also leads to my final point here. And what I think Karnisovas is going to do most importantly is completely change this image of the franchise. So we've talked about the coaching, we've talked about the roster construction, but the last part I want to really talk about is the image of the franchise. And so far, what we've seen under Garpax is that they're very complacent. If things happen and it wasn't supposed to happen, they're like, okay, it's all right, but we'll move on to the next season. We'll run it back. Hopefully things will get better because we believe in what we've done. If something doesn't work under Karnisovas, we've seen they're gone. So that immediately shows that this Bulls team is going to be staying up to date, and if they underachieve, changes are going to happen. And one of the big things that I do expect to happen for the image of the franchise is that they're not going to be so cheap anymore. Because right now the Bulls, they're currently over the cap, but they have not spent a lot of money. And with this type of roster, to be honest, we shouldn't even be at $114 million in total salary. So what I do expect Karnisovas to do is come in, completely change the image of the franchise, showing that we're willing to spend money. Because now he's in a big market, and the Denver Nuggets spent this season $130 million in a small market. So now that he has Jerry Reinsdorf as his owner, hopefully he'll convince Jerry Reinsdorf to be willing to pay more money, especially because it's a big franchise in a major city, to hopefully give Karnisovas more assets and more money to completely change up this franchise. So that's the biggest thing in my opinion, though, is between Garpax to Karnisovas, is that this new era is going to completely change this Bulls image in the NBA, really, because we've seen that a lot of free agents, they don't necessarily want to come here because it's all about like the blue collar work mentality, and always about being cheap and trying to get trying to work with stuff that isn't always there. For example, like under Tibbs, he got so much out of 7 guys, but that's just not enough to win a championship. And the Bulls would continue to just let guys go that played very well because they just didn't want to pay them. That image should be gone. And I think Karnisovas is going to come in and completely change that image, spend his money correctly, and get this team back up to being one of the most popular teams in the NBA, and hopefully one of the best teams in the NBA, and make it very attractive to the biggest name free agents in the NBA. So that's all I got for you guys for this video. Make sure you leave a like on this video, especially if you're a Bulls fan. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, especially if you're a Bulls fan. Follow me on Twitter at Duncan_White14. And also leave in the comments section down below of what you think Karnisovas is going to really do to change this Bulls franchise.